Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Find out how much easier managing your team can be by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and receive 2 months free plus VIP onboarding to help you hit the ground running, just in time for that festive rush.
Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality.
Today's guest is James Peck, chef and owner of the multi-award-winning Restaurant Ember in Wellingborough.
Coming up on today's show,
James' culinary career gets off to an interesting start.
I made Pat Meals for 3 months. My nickname's Pat Meal Pet.
Phil gets forgetful. I had a massively important point that was probably going to change the world, but that's completely gone out of my head. And James sings for us.
It's not unusual to be loved by any...
All that and so much more as we chat through James's superb story so far. And there's a bit of a story as to how James has ended up on the show, which we kind of kick off with, but needless to say, his story is another cracking example of what's possible in hospitality. Don't forget to give us a subscribe, a like and a share across your favourite platforms. Enjoy! And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to James Peck. Hello.
Good. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. It's not absolutely belting it down, so it's a bit less glum today.
It's been biblical, isn't it? The weather has just been insane.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough to be fair, and a lot of what we do kind of is in line with the elements a little bit. We do a lot of master classes and a lot of things outside, so when it does rain, it just creates another challenge. But otherwise, the sun's shining today, so it's a good day.
Very good. Yeah, and let it be noted for the record that you started the conversation on weather. It's usually me. So I'm not taking the blame for that one.
No.
But before we get into this today, I wanted to highlight how, this sounds really kind of trite, but how I found you. Because every year, my brother and I do a motorsport weekend get together. It's a thing we bond on, and it's kind of sacred in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And every place that we go and whatever we experience, on one of the evenings, we always try and find somewhere really cool to go eat.
Sure.
And in this case, it was your place in Wellingborough. And
Costa del Wellingborough. Costa del Wellingborough.
The hotbed of culinary activity that it is. But, Restaurant Ember is the name of the place. Didn't realise that you were, you obviously still get your hands dirty, as it were, and you're still on the pass and you're still heavily involved in service, etc. But you're also quite clearly an entrepreneur. You've got quite a lot going on. So just tell the world, tell us about your empire.
Yeah. So typical chef, done the rounds, London, that kind of thing, trying to find your place in this world. Sort of with a young family, young daughter, just the challenge of kind of working every weekend for someone else, and the challenge of family balance and stuff. And me and my daughter's mum were actually separated, so having my weekend whilst I was working, it just got to a point where it was just a bit too much. So I took the decision to can off quite a comfortable head chef, well-paid job that there was plenty of progression in, and just sort of go at it alone. And the place to start without any backing, funding or real direction was to just do dinner parties in people's houses. I was quite lucky that when I left London and came back to sort of my home county, Northants, that I had a reasonably good rep. So when it came to advertising dinner parties, it wasn't kind of like a complete start from scratch, although it was going on my own. It was like I had a bit of momentum. So I was cooking in people's homes. I remember my first sort of 6 months of it, I was using call boxes, and I parked down the road and hide the fact that I didn't have a big flashy fan and all this kit and stuff. And it was almost like this the small fish in the big pond, kind of giving off that big shadow. I'd kind of portrayed to have a bit more of an infrastructure than I perhaps do. So I used to hide my car, exactly that. And then I go and do kind of like a 9-10 course tasting menu in someone's house. And I've got more and more of these jobs. And it just grew to the point where, I ended up taking on more staff and I had more resource, and then I need a kitchen. It kind of organically grew into something a bit bigger than what it was ever meant to be, which was just me, myself, hacking my call box. Kind of started in prepping in homes and dinner parties. And then, I need another chef for the weekend. Oh, we're in 2 locations this week. Oh, we've got a job Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 on Sunday. Oh, can you do Christmas Day? Like there was just basically, it just organically kept evolving into this kind of growth, and we just kept kind of growing on. And, and every time there was a need for something, we'd then acquire it organically. And it was very much kind of go with it a little bit. And then it started turning into a bit more of a business in terms of, okay, we've got a wage bill now, right, we've got rent now, okay, we need to register for VAT, we've got a VAT bill now. And it kind of organically grew into what was supposed to be kind of a chef in a cool box, just wanting a bit of independence, to almost being slave to my, like, robbed my own back, as it was. So like, it
Yeah.
was like I was actually ended up working more, and I had more things to worry about, and I wasn't being able to have a finance director or anything like that, or necessarily a full blown bookkeeper. So it's like, okay, so I was doing the cooking, but then I was trying to do the accounts. I was trying to
Cooking the
make sure
books.
supply,
I didn't say that.
but yeah, so it turned out to what was supposed to be for a bit of balance, and that kind of meaning that I was working harder, but for more of myself. So I didn't feel like I was slaving away for someone else's gain. It was putting towards for my future. So yeah, and then done that, and then we became we definitely become the biggest and probably the first in the county that was a specific dinner party brand. So we do events and catering, but we were tailored more to creating events and memories and stuff in your house. So, we go to all types of kitchens, beautiful big kitchens of people that are very fortunate to have like an amazing setup, better than some of the restaurants I've worked in. And we'll go and do dinner parties for 12 out of a shed with a little induction hob and no extraction. So like, it was a good learning curve. And when I look back on it, it gave me the opportunity to kind of like be quite flexible and work around and kind of adapt a little bit. And I think that's where my problem solving plus comes in a little bit. So
yeah. So we've kind of done this a little bit arse over tit, as it were, for want of a better phrase. Talk to us about what you have now in terms of the
where we're at now.
You have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So right now we've got Restaurant Ember, which you dined with us. So we've been there 2.5 years. May this year we took on and decided to buy a pub, one that we actually had during COVID, but we were kind of like, I guess it was sublet to us for a little while. Like we would just take over the kitchen. It was like a need to survive. And then the opportunity came that we could actually buy the pub. So I'm currently sat in the newest. And then November last year, 4 doors down from Ember, we put in a cocktail bar, and that opened November time last year. So yeah, we've got kind of Ember, which is, I guess, the flagship kind of brand restaurant, which allows us to be really creative. We've got kind of like the cozy pub, the Pears, which offers a bit more of a family kind of setup, and it's kind of Sunday lunch working backwards and sort of lunches during the week. And then the cocktail bar, which has kind of an outdoor terrace where we do a lot of masterclasses. So yeah, the 3 venues keep us pretty busy, and they're all very different, which is really good. So it allows people in the team to kind of add value in certain areas where they can. And, we have people with different nuances that can add better value in an open face kitchen. Then we've got people that prefer to be in kind of the pub and cook more hearty. So that's the mini empire.
Yeah. And that's actually something that I found really wonderful, having experienced Restaurant Ember, was that openness to you guys, and the fact that you were totally accessible to. We were lucky enough to dine on your bar, which is right in front of the kitchen, on open flames in front, watching your food basically be created right in front of your eyes. There's something really special around the theatre of that. But then to have access to you to talk about that, talk about why these flavor combinations are together. Where did this dish come from? And the thing that I always remember about that conversation was you talking about, well, this dish is actually from this guy here. And I really, really love
the cauliflower. Is it cauliflower?
That's right.
I almost remember it exactly.
Yeah, and it was like, I love the fact that yes, you've created something that's I suppose still quite young, really, in the grand scheme of things, but is obviously moving forward.
Yeah.
But part of that is bringing people along on the journey, right? And you clearly are doing that with the allowing your guys to kind of bring their creativity to the party.
I think there's 2 parts to that. There's one which is more a strategic underline, which is I can't be the brand. I almost need people to develop within it and have their own storylines, because there are going to be times where I need to be at another venue, or I want to be supporting another project, I want to do a masterclass, and I need people to go in and know that those faces that they see in there, and pretty much all my chefs now have a profile to some degree where people know who they are. And it's like a journey that people are along with. So it's not kind of the James show. It's kind of like, people recognize Hannah, that kind of thing. And they're recognizing our other young chefs, and they've seen them on social. So we're pretty quite open with our staff, when we're moving or promoting people. Whenever people come in and add value to the business, it's all about celebrating them. So there's a strategic part, whereas it can't be the James show. In order to grow the business, it needs to be about us as a brand and us as a team. But also, staff retention is key now. There's a lot of kind of people struggling to find staff. I found that treating my team like it's their business and it being completely immersive, inclusive, no, people are happy. They don't want to leave. Like, we have a chat about, there's going to be a time where you're going to need to take the next step up for your development. Once you've learned as much as you can with me, you're going to have to probably go to London or out the way a little bit, out of the county. Like, the idea is almost scaring them. And whereas that is warming to me and it's like amazing and it validates that we're doing a good job, it also is quite scary in terms of like development, because I need them to move on to develop themselves and for the next wave to come in. So yeah, people having their own profiles and building their own stories and their own repertoire, I think is going to aid them and me. Staff retention, people love working with us. They love the open kitchen, especially the Ember team, because they get that kind of gratification of, that was amazing, chef, and like, oh, this is Will's dish. And when Will comes over, talks about why he put it on, and it's like they're almost getting the feel of it being their own business to that degree, and it inspires them. So yeah, it's kind of like a two-way thing where it's about the people in the business, but it's also about the brand not being held hostage by one person. It's not all about me. And actually, Will, who I think it was his second week, who I sort of introduced you to, was his second week in, and he was already putting dishes on and stuff.
I know, that blew my mind. I don't think I've ever heard anything like that in my life, but in a really good way. But also then for him to have the confidence to come over and talk about dish, like, that's also really, really brilliant for the development, right? Because
100%.
I think a lot of the time, from a kitchen perspective, it can be a job where you can basically hide if you want to.
100%.
You just get in and do your thing, and you don't ever have interaction with the guests or whatever.
Yeah.
But, so actually developing that side of somebody's personality, I think, is massively valuable.
Yeah, I think it grows their self-confidence. I think for the customer point of view as well, adding layers of that guest experience. Yeah. So like, they're not just in a kitchen, oh, that's a good plate of food, it's gone out. They're actually seeing the impact in the dining room. They see all aspects of the business. Will cost dishes before he puts them on the menu. Like, he has to understand that it needs to hit a certain GP for it to even be viable. Because Ember's so small, it means everything we put on, it has to be viable. There can't be things on there for egos or something that's a draw. It has to be a dish that's going to make money, that kind of thing. So yeah, we've got all these different kind of aspects, and the guys are adding more layers onto their skill set, talking to customers how to handle themselves, how to work clean and tidy under pressure, how to communicate without screaming and shouting, a little bit of diligence. It's a massive opportunity for a young chef to refine certain skills that are going to add value to them in their next step. If you are on you saw it firsthand, you're on a Friday or Saturday night, you come in, there's checks on, it's busy, we're not all screaming and shouting at each other. Everyone's really confident, calm and organised and stuff. So I feel proud that we add that value, as well as kind of hopefully techniques that are going to develop them. So yeah.
Could not agree with you more. I mean, and it was busy when we were in. Like, I don't think there was a spare table in the house, and
no,
so there was an atmosphere. You had a DJ playing in the corner, but still there's this serenity in the kitchen, which was it was blowing my mind. Which is why one of the reasons why I was so keen to then kind of investigate with you whether you'd come on the show, because to me you were almost showcasing to me what is possible. Like, all of this stuff that you might have heard about, shouty kitchens, bullying, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But I don't doubt for a second that still goes on in some places. But it's possible. It is absolutely possible. And it just
100%.
takes good leadership and direction.
I think you're seeing now a lot of the big guys that are coming out, sort of like your late 90s, early 2000s chefs, kind of like your pinnacle chefs that we look up to. They've all kind of turned around now and sort of said, I used to be that guy. I've learned now that to run a viable kitchen, to retain staff, to keep a solid, consistent team. Consistency is a massive key word now in hospitality. People want to be consistent. They don't necessarily need to be the best or the cheapest or the most out there. They want to be consistent. Screaming, shouting, losing chefs, bringing new chefs in. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. No one's going to learn or even grow confidence if they're in fear of being screamed at or having something thrown at them. Because if you, like for me, I manage in a different way. If something isn't quite right, I find it more powerful to bring everyone together or isolate that individual, depending on the type of issue it's been, and just talk them through where they went wrong, where they need to look at improving, and then you go again. If it's 2 or 3 times and there's another conversation, it's not working out. But generally speaking, you get a lot more from someone putting to one side, look, is everything going on all right? Like, I know it sounds quite serious. There's a lot of people going through a lot more stuff now than there was been, or people more open to talk about it. So making sure there's nothing outside of work bothering them first to be overlooked. And then just having the one-on-one. So yeah, screaming and shouting doesn't really happen. I don't think I've ever shouted in my kitchen. I think the only time I've ever lost my rag ever in a kitchen was when I was working for someone being bullied by a senior chef, because it was put onto me and it tumbled down. Like, if you're being suppressed and almost pushed around and kind of, I'd say bullied to a degree, but not managed correctly, then it kind of forces you then to put that down. So I found that you kind of product your environment a little bit. So
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I'm finding all of this fascinating, but actually, what I really want to do is delve back into your background in a bit more depth, because I mean, I obviously know a little bit about your background, we've had a couple of chats, and also you filled out the form that I asked you to fill out. So take us all the way back to kind of, I suppose, school age, that sort of when you're starting to think about your life and times and what that might look like. Where were you at that point?
I was the kind of kid at school that tried to distract myself and not knuckle down. I potentially had the capacity to do quite well, but I just, not ADHD, I would say, but I was easily distracted. I'd be chatting to my mates. I just needed to get on with something else. I couldn't sit still for too long. I was in food tech, and the irony is that I absolutely hated it. And it was my worst lesson. And to the point where you're supposed to bring your ingredients in, and and if you didn't, you brought your money in and they paid for the ingredients. And I just found every excuse under the sun to get out of it. It was only until I got put next to someone that I quite fancied that it was a bit easier. And it was, again, another distraction. I knew I wanted to join the army. My dad was in the forces. I knew I wanted to follow his footsteps. I didn't really know what. It was coming to sort of my grade time when I needed to sort of really make sure that I knuckled down and got the GCSEs that I needed. I wanted to blow shit up. The technical term is building and structural finishing in the REME, the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. I needed a C in maths for that, and I actually got a D. And I remember my local Northampton officer saying, join as a chef or join as something else, and you can redo your qualifications and transfer. So I was like, brilliant. Yeah, my dad was absolutely fuming. Like, it was a really, really tough few months between leaving school, knowing that I'd failed and not achieved the qualification that I needed to. Bearing in mind, I got like B's in English and science. It was just maths. It's a hereditary weak spot in our family. So I joined as a chef, redone my qualifications within my first 6 months once I passed all my training. And at that point, I can't remember, it was like a Sitting Guilds equivalent to like A to C or something. So I had the qualifications. By that point, I was hooked. I was sent to Cyprus. I was competing. I was doing sports. I was making friends for life. I was based in Cyprus and just having the time of my life. Like, obviously leaving school, not exactly sure. Pretty much thought I was lost, or in like a space and time. It was almost like a stopgap before I was going to find my real career. Yeah. By then, I was just enjoying it, and I got the bug for it. So it was like a real weird way into hospitality. So I've done 7 years in the army. It's really got my head down. I was in a space where I had a lot of opportunities. I was doing quite well. I was regarded kind of head of my pack within my rank to a certain degree. I was doing private chef CBF, which is Commander British Forces. So I was having the opportunity to cook for really high ranking officers. So I was kind of exposed to, I guess, that world of, that high ranking officer is almost like your VIP guest, say. So how to handle yourself and how to be around and how to be diligent and how to be composed and hold yourself, whether it's in a conversation or almost learning more refined cookery within the army, which don't really go hand in hand. You think slop stews, range stews, that sort of thing, and calories. When you think military, you don't think necessarily anything refined, but I was doing dinner pies. So yeah, the military was how I got in, really.
Can you remember the moment whereby you thought to yourself, do you know what, actually I could get on with this cooking thing? Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, it was, so every year the military has a big cooking competition called have you heard of like Army Navy or the tri-service rugby? It's massive. The Army Navy, they have a cooking one. It's just less manly, I guess.
Right, okay.
But yeah, every year they compete, and I was based in Cyprus and I was picked to represent, and it was called OFCS, Operational Field Catering Services Competition. So we take a tent and all the kind of what you'd expect an army tent cooking setup to have, and we had to put like we'll get given like you have to produce a 4-course meal for 100 people with these rations. 80% of it's from the dry store, 20% is fresh, and you don't know what the fresh is until you get there. And I remember being paid, coming from Cyprus to Wembley to do this. I remember meeting loads of friends and thinking this was just amazing. And then we ended up winning and doing really, really well. And then winning like all Ireland catering champions. And I was kind of like, in my rank, I was the one there was like one person from each rank that's put forward, and I was the person put forward, and we won. And it was a bit like, I didn't think I'd liked cooking, but somehow it's working out. I'm enjoying it, and things you enjoy, you tend to learn more and become better at. If something's a grind, you tend not to absorb so much information. But I remember that weekend just like, I don't want to leave this. This is this is an amazing opportunity, and also because it's so alien to me, I was learning a lot. So it wasn't on my radar. So it's like a whole skill set that I wasn't even looking at.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, some of these things happen by happy accident, right? I mean, you just all of a sudden you find yourself somewhere and go, oh, hang on, I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. And then the military career sort of ended just after 7.5 years. I found out I was going to be a dad, and I just needed to be home for it. And then I'll be honest here, I feel like my real culinary journey started then. It was like my first civilian employer was one of my high-ranking military officers in the army who'd left the army after retiring for 24 years, and he actually running the logistics for the Olympics, and then went on to be an executive chef for a high-end hotel. And that's where I really felt like I feel like I learned to organise and hold my own and adapt and problem solve in the military. But I feel like I learned to cook when I left. That's not to put down on the military catering, but I mean food fuel for the military and then cooking for pleasure for guests is two completely different jobs. So I feel like I learned to cook when I left. But what I had, I guess, other people was probably the background of managing stress and under pressure and the kind of situations and like learning to problem solve. So I feel like I had that. I didn't have the French gastronomy encyclopedia in the back of my head, or I couldn't name you 10 famous French chefs at the time, but like you gave me 100 covers in a problem and I'll find a way to solve it the best I can. So I feel like I had that little bit of edge.
That's a great grounding, like for any and most environments that you'd kind of be put in front in any kitchen environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't let your the army part of your story pass without talking about courgettes and cucumbers.
Yeah, I mean,
which is a sentence I always hope to say on this show, but there
it was in my first 2 weeks. So I've just passed out of training, which is quite honourable. It's called your pass out parade, all your family come to, and it's like one that most people say in the military career, it's like the proudest moment because your training is where they like mould you and like they bring you in off the streets almost, and they turn you into this, machine and your fitness and stuff like that and being screamed at. It's the hardest part because it's such a big transition. Yeah. And I remember getting to my regiment and thinking, this is it, done it, let's smash it. And my unit had been sent to Afghanistan. So I had joined and got to my regiment, and my regiment were in Afghanistan. So you had a skeleton crew at the base. So there was like less than 100 people. There'd normally be several thousand. And it was like, right, we're making packed meals for 3 months for all the guards and all the staff that are back, all the people that are integral to keeping the base operational. So I made packed meals for 3 months. My nickname is Pack Meal Peck. So my first instance was just putting sandwiches into packets and crisps and shit and yogurts and shitty bars and stuff. But I remember using a mandolin and they said, right, you need to get sort of 3,000 cucumbers out and need to get them ready for sandwiches tomorrow. You prep all the sandwiches the day before and build them the next day. So I'm there like, I'm like an hour in and I'm just like, and he's like, quicker, Peck, so I'm keen, I'm trying to do everything quick, missing fingers and toes and making sure I don't cut myself and get into trouble. And then it's the next morning, I'm putting these sandwiches together and someone must not have checked me whilst I was doing my job because I still don't know where that's passed. But yeah, it's like, who made the sandwiches? Bearing in mind this is for like 300-400 people. Who made the sandwiches? I'm like, me, sir. Why? He went, fucking courgettes in sandwiches. Do you know something we don't? And and it meant that I was on packed meals for a lot longer. I had to prove myself, and it's a laughing point after a while. But when you're in that moment, you're like, I've just got
devastated.
Yeah. So packed meal Peck is something that sort of lives with me for a long time and lives rent free in my head. So yeah, courgettes instead of cucumbers. So I personally think it was a revelation. If I'd done it now, I'd probably be looked at as a genius.
Well, indeed, yeah. Again, sandwiches of their time.
Yeah,
or maybe you were ahead of your time.
I think that's what it was.
It's kind of almost like it's almost like it could turn into a metaphor for your life, couldn't it? Like somebody gives you cucumbers, make sure you give them courgettes. That sort of
definitely. But, it was just one of their moments where it's like at the time you didn't know because you weren't shown, and actually there's a lesson for me to be learned now. It's like when you're showing young chefs things and they miss out something simple, it might seem simple to you because you've done it. But actually, if no one's shown you and you're at the beginning, you're fresh out of the factory, nothing's obvious to you. You're completely out your depth and irrelevant. So, I've seen chefs use salt instead of sugar. It's like, well, actually, they look very similar. And it sounds silly, but like, teach chefs how to check for that. Like, there's a lesson, underline it all. There is a lesson. And maybe I wasn't being shown. Maybe someone overlooked the fact that most people that have just come from school don't know what a courgette looks like. And it's similar to a cucumber in some aspects. So there's a lesson to be learned, but it's definitely, when you said what's the funniest thing that happened, that I think it was less than a second and that was in my head, so it's definitely the one that sticks. So
funny now, but not in the moment. But
still sweat about it when I think about it. It's still funny, but there's an edge of like I'm looking over my shoulder with someone to shout at me.
I suppose it's also it's one of those things whereby I kind of almost I like and respect the fact that rather than saying, well, we can't have him on sandwiches again, it's almost like, no, you'll learn.
Do it till you get it right. Yeah.
100%.
I think that was another good lesson,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're naff at something, it's easy to hide away for it. And pastries, that for a lot of chefs, I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of chefs, and like pastries, like a lot of people's Achilles heel, where they try and avoid it in jobs. But sometimes you just need to face up to it, and you need to stick out until you master it. So yeah, safe to say I've got cucumber sandwiches down now.
Yeah, good. Well, I look forward to one of them next time I'm in your area. Or a courgette sandwich. I'd give it a go. Yeah. But there we are. Yeah. So anyway, let's back to the story. So you've made the transition. Talk to me about the transition from armed forces into civilian life, I suppose is what it's classified as. Was it a culture shock, or how did you? Right.
Yeah. It was a massive in my life, having all I wanted to do and thought that I was going to spend my whole life in the military. It wasn't on my radar that I was going to be kind of coming out into Civvy Street. The coming home was definitely, your accommodation sorted and your healthcare sorted. You get paid at the end of every month, and that's what you get. And it's kind of disposable to a degree. Whereas leaving, having to private rent, put deposits down, have a young child, that I was 21, 22. I was, although I was with my partner and stuff, it was a surprise to a degree. And it was a real hit the ground running. It's like, right, I've got two choices now. I put my head down and do the best I can, or I stay in the army and then I drag my family across the world, which I've seen, and growing up in a family that's broken because of the travel, I just didn't want to do it. Yeah. So I thought, right, let's leave. Let's join Civvy Street. And I just got my head down best I could. I started from the absolute bottom. And actually, there's another funny story, not as long-winded, but my first ever real high-end job in London was a sous chef job. And being in the military, there's no French terminology. It was ranks. So I applied for a sous chef job, trialed, got it. I remember on my first proper day, it was like a kitchen full of kind of like big Hungarian men, and the head chef was English. And I got me down. I was there with ironed whites, clean shaven boots. And they were like, "Who's this knobhead?" They're all a bit more. They've been through the mill.
He'll learn.
Yeah, he'll learn. And everyone kept asking me what they wanted for them to do. Like the big sort of Hungarian chefs, like sort of were, "Chef, what do you want me to do now? What do you want me to do?" I'm like, "What the fuck is everyone asking me? What to do next? Why are they asking me? It's my first day or my first week." And they're like, "You're the sous chef." I went, yeah. Run to the toilet, got my phone out, Googled sous chef. Fuck, I'm second in command in here. What the hell? And I mean, it was called the Troubadour. It was a classic French bistro where not Elton John, who's on The Voice.
Oh God, I don't watch it.
Oh, God's sakes. Curly hair, John Summit. Anyway, it's where he was discovered underground. It's not unusual to be
Tom Jones.
Tom Jones, sorry. It's where Tom Jones was discovered. So
it might be the first person that's ever sung on the podcast as well. So well done.
I like to go above and beyond. So yeah, my first job properly was sous chef job. I didn't know what sous chef meant. So I'm Googling it. And basically the first 9 months of that job, which only lasted a year because of I was out of my depth, was me Googling and problem solving. Can you get on with the and they asked me to get on with the Oaxaca sauce. I'm like, sets. Just nip into the loo. Oaxaca sauce, that perfect. Memorize that. Don't get my phone out of my pocket again, and go in. And I managed to get through it. They must have known I was not ready, but I was still in a job. I was being paid well. Maybe it was a time and place where they were looking for chefs. But yeah, I just got through it with getting Googling and just being inquisitive and asking the question, "Can you make a chimichurri?" Yeah, of course I can, and just being strategic. So yeah, that was quite funny. My first sous chef job was just a complete accident.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
Didn't know what it was.
That's a kind of hangover from the army then as well, isn't it? Right? Because that's like you just go into, rather than oh God, that's the problem. I'm going to deal with the problem and solve it somehow.
So I felt like from a young age, especially having my daughter young and the military, and then probably my first civilian job, pressure and dealing with pressure quite early on was something that I found myself I found it relatively comfortable being in a pressured environment, and I found I thrived. It's not to say the COVID pressures and stuff like that meant I was comfortable, but just the general pressure of expectation and delivering on a time and a product was something that I felt quite comfortable, and I felt better having a time challenge or a standard challenge to work towards. So yeah, I felt quite comfortable in that environment of, if I don't know, I'll find out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
I think
that
it
was in
helped
your
me.
mind.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was your first foray into
Yeah.
civilian life. What happened next?
Done the rounds in London, went to work in some high-end places, went to work in kind of anything from like that classic French restaurant I spoke about, doing really high numbers and like beef bourguignon and coq au vin and poulet de soleil and like these classic brasserie dishes, to more refinement, doing like smoked duck club sandwiches that were like little snacks in like a high-end place on the Michelin guide. Just got a taste of everything, just wanted to learn, wanted to find my place. And then I ended up at the Grove, which is quite a well-known golf rated hotel on the edge of, in Watford, on the edge of London. And then kind of got talking to someone that was on a golf day there that happened to be from back home. It was just crazy, like moments like this don't come very often at the time. Talking to someone, I'm from Northampton, I'm opening a restaurant, come back and work for me. So I was coaxed back to Northampton, but on London money, which gave me an opportunity to bring together everything I'd learned and my kind of my work rate and stuff. And I was lucky because back home there wasn't a lot of opportunity, especially one that was paying to a point where I was able to actually make a good living with having a young child at my age. Because most people look at you like 24, 25, now you're going to be, whatever, we're going to use you a bit. So yeah, I was able to take a head chef job, which was great. I felt at the time ready, although looking back at it now, probably wasn't, because the business aspect of it was completely alien to me. But actually running a kitchen, running a team and a product, I was there. Done that for a few years, and then I just decided, actually, unfortunately, just working for a couple of different employees in the county and the ethics and being exposed to not necessarily the nice part of business, being promised equity if I met targets and not being given equity, and kind of just being used a little bit. And then I'd spent so long making a name for certain restaurants and putting myself out there and doing all the award stuff and competing and stuff. And I was like, I'm just done with it. So that's when I decided, boom, I've had it. I'm going to just go work for myself. Whether I live or die on my own sword, it's by my own account. So that was kind of it. Just left London, come back and just really tried to find my place. And like you say, isn't somewhere that's necessarily the culinary melting pot of the universe. It's not exactly the centre point where everyone comes to meet for an amazing meal. Not yet. So we'll see.
Everywhere has to start somewhere, right? I mean, this was
100%.
one of the joys for me of finding your restaurant for our excursion. You were literally 4 minutes away from where we were staying. Yeah, and this is one of the joys of hospitality for me is stumbling upon somewhere, which is what I did with your place. Didn't know you from Adam before, and then kind of to learn about your journey to now be doing what you're doing. I think what I really loved about that little chat that we had on that evening was you talking about you gave me like a 30-second snapshot of your journey, and the fact that you had worked in some places that test you, like and I don't mean that always in a good way, like they test you in the wrong ways, and you just spoken there as well about ethical issues sometimes, but sometimes I suppose you've got to maybe see these things in action to know that that's not you, right? And to know
100%.
that you've then got to go and be that change in the world that you want to you want to see.
I definitely think that even places that I worked for people that necessarily weren't, it's hard to put this into context, potentially going to a place that wasn't beneficial to yourself, and maybe you were being used as a part, like a stopgap for whatever reason, or there's still a lesson to be learned from even bad managers. Like I say, even if I've been a part of the management that wasn't passionate, even if it's at the worst case just wasn't passionate, you learn. Okay, because I can see the negative effect it has on the work team and how it flows down. So like whenever I become a manager, or even as a head chef, I always sort of said to myself, I'd love to run a team where people know I've got their back, they've got mine. If I'm able to do something for them, I can within means. We always try and promote within. If there's ever a spot that comes available, I'm always gunning for the next person up. If it's a realistic transition, if an opportunity comes, there's always an opportunity to give my existing team the next rung up or the next opportunity. So I feel that these are lessons that I've learned from necessary places that haven't been able to manage in a way where they are really caring about their staff, because in this day and age it's a lot harder to run a restaurant, run a pub, run a business, let's be honest. So if you look after your team, they look after you, and I truly believe that that's kind of where people now are realizing there's a lot of value to be had in making sure your team, you see in the 4-day weeks in your kind of elite level restaurants and stuff like that, you're seeing a lot more work-friendly environments at the forefront of conversations now. When you look at your kind of hospitality kind of shows where you get the likes of Tom Kerridge comes in and but obviously says, I was an alcoholic, I've abused my team and now I realise to run, there's more honesty now. You've got the Burnt Chef Project, you've got more people that talk about mental health. Like there's no stigma in it now, that treating people better is not only better for them, but it's also better for your business. And it's just at the forefront now. And I'm quite glad that actually working for a couple of people that didn't necessarily have those values or morals, it's actually like, well, I've learned from them still. I've still learned something from them, whether it wasn't a passion for cookery or a passion to manage. It's actually, okay, don't treat them like shit. Don't watch them on the CCTV and ring them every 2 minutes going, why are you sat down? Well, because I'm costing my menu. Show me. You smother people like that, they're not going to work for you and they're going to start to resent you. So yeah, that's why I think, and not trying to sound like Mother Teresa, but when you do treat people well, they work harder for you. So it's a mutual agreement. Our obligations are to make sure you're in a job, you're safe, you're secure, you're in an environment where you have everything you need, and in back you get not just the contracted hours and the work rate, you get that love and care and that passion. And I think Ember it had to happen because we had to stand out. The way in which Ember sits in terms of being public facing, it had to happen because it had to be different, A, to separate itself from the pack, but B, to give the chefs an opportunity to sort of see in fruition like the hard work and the hours that goes into the customers. And I think it's just, you see more open kitchens. I think it aids into the kind of staff wanting to be part of something where they feel the benefit from. And it, like I say, it might just be the gratitude of chef. That was freaking amazing. Who was that? Oh, it was Will. Will, come and talk about your dish. So I think it's a really good full circle moment of, just a gelled team and everyone on this journey. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a massively important point that was probably going to change the world, but that's completely gone out of my head.
Sorry, King Waffle over here.
Yeah.
I think it's not often you get asked some of these questions. So actually, when you think about it for the first time and try and put it into words, it's like you're almost like answering the questions for the first time. And I think that's why it's like, oh yeah, I didn't think of it like that. So it's good the way it forces you to think about why you do what you do, because you often overlook ways you run your business and stuff. So
I've remembered what it was I was going to say. The happiness point actually is a key thing, and actually maybe one of the best quotes that we've ever had on this show came from Phil Howard, who quite widely speaks about his own demons. We didn't cover that a lot on the show because it's been done before.
Yeah.
And the thing that he mentioned was quite simply, it's amazing how hard people will work for you if they're happy.
Yeah, 100%. And that is such a powerful tool. And my first head chef in my most refined restaurant actually was sous chef to Phil Howard, and he probably is the one person that taught me the most. So actually, from him saying that to someone that has indirectly worked for someone that has worked for Phil Howard for so long, I can see that 100%. A guy called Nate Green, he's in Tokyo now, but he managed me individually in terms that he knew my strengths and weaknesses, and he worked on that rather than just kind of expecting everyone just to be this robot. So yeah, that makes complete sense, and it is powerful. And yeah, people will go the extra mile. Like my head chef here, he's not just a head chef, he can fix anything. On his days off, he's in with a screwdriver if we've got a leak and under the sink and stuff like that, and he's fixing coffee machines, which is a lost cause now. But yeah, like he doesn't have, people don't have to do these things on their days off, but they're invested in the journey. They're happy and content in their job. So yeah, 100%. I think it's good to hear people like that, like two Michelin star Phil Howard, that's one of Britain's best chefs and most kind of looked up to, coming out. And I think it's good for those guys to finally open up a little bit. And it doesn't have to be every week. They have to keep rinse and repeat the story, because I'm sure they want to close the door on their past to a certain degree. Yeah. They're all talking about moving forward and how powerful it is, and admitting that things do need to change and are changing. So it's definitely powerful.
Yeah, no doubt. There was something else that I kind of wanted to talk about, because you had an experience on TV, I think, in terms of you were on a competition, which I'm wondering if the fact that you did some competitions in the army has kind of fed that side of you a little bit in terms of your ability to be able to compete.
Yeah, I guess probably subconsciously, yeah. The show, it was BBC Two, the Chef's Brigade, and I think it was 2020 now, 2019, I can never remember. It happened just before COVID, really. So it was really unfortunate, because a lot of success personally come off the back of that show and a lot of opportunities, and then COVID kind of shut the door on it. It was quite an interesting period of time. But it was like more of a travelling documentary with a competitive edge. So there wasn't this big fat prize at the end, but you basically, with Jason Atherton was the lead chef, and we went around Europe competing. So we stopped off in like Puglia, Norway, Andalusia, San Sebastian, we finished in Lyon and Paris.
I mean, that's
And
not
we
bad,
go to
is
these. Oh, listen. So basically, when you said, "Oh, about the competing," it's like, no, it's like, what? Go around BBC Two, one of the world's best chefs. Be paid to, and yeah. So it was a time in my life that was absolutely phenomenal, and it was probably the first time I've been exposed in such a small amount of time, because it was 3 months of filming, and the amount I was exposed to just absolutely blew my mind. And we were all fighting for the top job. People got kicked off the show, swapped out, demoted. You got made kitchen porter and stuff like that. So it was like, it was amazing. And it was more of like, I don't want to test myself in a culinary way to see if I'm the best thing since sliced bread, because I know where I sit, and I know the kind of food I like to cook, and I know the kind of ingredients and techniques and stuff I'm exposed to. But I wanted to test my resilience and see, like, if anything I've learned, how do I fit in a team? I was in my, I think I just turned 30. I'm not a 19-year-old chef working at a 2-star. It's like there'll be youngsters that'll surpass me in terms of skill set and in refinement and whatever. It's like, where do I sit? And it was a good chance of like to figure that out. And it was a great opportunity to see, like, can the skills I've learned from the military or kind of like the problem solving, will they hold me in good stead and stuff, against just someone that's been exposed to like the best cuts of beef in the world, but has he had the kind of experience to think for himself, or is he kind of in robot mode where he's just told what to do? So it was interesting. So I was one of the more senior in terms of experience on there, and it was interesting to see kind of like where I sat. So yeah, we went around some amazing locations, met some amazing people, ate in some amazing Michelin star restaurants, and got to work quite closely with Jason Atherton, which was absolutely mental. And it was quite weird, actually. We found out that Restaurant Ember won Great Food Guide's Restaurant of the Year, and you've got a couple of restaurants on like the Bib, Gourmand, and kind of like not Michelin star, but on the guide's watch list on there. And like, it's a real, I think there was only 2 of us from the county, so like, it was quite, for me, it was quite crazy for me, because it was an outer county one. It wasn't just a Northampton one, which is quite a small pool of restaurants of a certain quality. This one was a bit more. And I was sat with Jay Stafford when we found out we won that, and I think I sort of couldn't believe it. We were quite lucky to go to his new restaurant opening, and it was the first time I sat there, and I thought about the whole journey. It's like, we were on a TV show with him, and now I'm sat in his rrestaurant, and I just found out my restaurant's done well, and it was like this surreal moment, and it sort of blows my mind. So yeah, last couple of weeks have been quite cool. So but the show's brought so many opportunities to the point where even now I've got to meet Spencer Metzger, who's now about to open Row in London. They just won 2 stars out in Dubai, and I was sat having a coffee with him last week, just because I said yes to an email about going on a TV show. Like, the opportunities to meet these people and kind of get my foot in the door and become somewhat a friendly face to the brand, where if I go into kind of Jason Atherton's restaurant and stuff like that, it's a warm welcome and a hello, and like, you always kind of get met with warmth and stuff, and like, that wouldn't have come about. I wouldn't have been exposed to that kind of high caliber elite chefs, even on a personal level, to have a cup of tea and a bit of advice for. I wouldn't have had that if I just didn't say yes to an email that come through about, are you interested for auditioning into a show? So yeah, it's been a while now. It is. But for me, I'm sure there's chefs that have had similar crazy stories like that, but so many crazy things have happened in my life because I said yes to certain things and just gone for it and took a bit of risk. So
yeah, like coming on a podcast like this.
Which is wicked though. But the thing, no, but do you know what's? It's good because you're asking me things that I've not asked myself.
Right.
Okay. And podcasting, you're like, but you don't think about this too often. It's quite nice to reflect, actually, because chefs, hospitality, everyone's thinking forward, and it's all about adapting, overlooking the next challenge. Actually, it's quite nice to look and just stop and think, well, I've done some wicked stuff. I'm quite proud of some of the stuff we've done and stuff that people we worked with and worked for us and stuff, and where they've gone. So yeah, it's definitely a surreal, and it's why we do it, isn't it? It's memories and things to look back on. So
yeah, and I think that there has to be some kind of deep rooted thing within you as well, especially now you're a business owner and you are front and center in that business. You're still involved, you're still having interaction with your guests and all of that. There has to be something deep within you that takes joy in watching other people enjoy what you do.
Yeah, I think my fulfillment now is less like the young chef that just wants to, like, I've never been a chef that wants to win anything, and like, I've never shot out and like my goal is an award or anything like that. They're lovely and they're great for the team. When I was younger, it's about trying to do the best food I possibly could, and everyone think that we were the best thing, and it was like a bit of an ego ride, which is, I think, ingrained into all young chefs. If you're competitive, you want to try and be the best you can be and separate yourself from the group, and you kind of, I guess deep down, everyone wants to be kind of like appreciated for their work, right, to a certain degree. Now in my older age, not trying to say I'm old. But it's like my chefs that I took a chef on that was pot washing for 5 or 6 years, and she like had 6 months kitchen experience. She comes to work with me, and with 2 years she won Young Chef of the Year in her first year, and she's now in the last for a Senior Chef of the Year. And I've got 2 other chefs in the category that one of them was an electrician a year ago, and the other one was a plumber. And it's like, my reward now is not only like bums on seats and having a busy restaurant, which is not only a business need, it's also like a validation of like you're on the right path, people enjoying your food, but people seeing people grow within your business, it's a beautiful feeling where you can see I don't know, people just going from bumming around college and not sure if they like it to earning really good money, entering competitions, doing really well and winning them, and having a job that they're really passionate about. Like, on their days off, they're going out to eat in restaurants together and they're meeting up, and there's a lot of that, and we do it quite a lot. So like now I get my reward from watching my team kind of excel in the areas. So that's quite nourishing. And like, I'm an ambassador for like the local college, so go and do a lot of stuff with the colleges and a lot of talks and things like that. And like it's unlocks like a new bit, whereas I'm still learning myself. Like, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur is how I look at it. I'm aspiring to sort of really find this space and do well in this space, but I'm still learning as well. So I don't ever want to sit here and think I know it all and I can teach everyone. It's not the case. But as I'm learning, people are learning with me, and I think that's amazing. So that's quite powerful. So I'm finding like this new kind of motivation now of just working with my team and bringing them up and seeing what they go on to do. So, and trying to kick them out of the business one day for them to go and do something else. Like, that's going to be hard. Like literally, I'm going to have to kick people out of this business for their own development and for their own benefit, because we've got youngsters that are quickly rising the ranks, and they need a place to go. They need, so it's getting to the point where it's like, the next year I need to be looking at the next step for certain people for their own benefit. Not that I have to let people go, I want people to go, but it's like they're the kind of people that are on a trajectory and they need to find the next step. They need to go and learn the next thing from someone. So
yeah. I was just talking to somebody, Conor O'Leary, from the managing director of Gleneagles, had him on the show yesterday, and we were talking about exactly the same thing. It's like when it's somebody's time to fly, you have to let them fly, right?
You have to.
And yes, there's a little pain moment for the business and for you because they're friends and all of these different things. But actually, it's just the right thing to do.
It's hard though, because everyone wants to retain their staff, right? And people find it hard. So it's like finding that kind of point where you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and you don't want to force someone that doesn't want to go. But if you truly want, if you're invested in your team and you want the best for them, they'll come back one day. Like, there's nothing to say that, my sous chef here now goes to London for 2 years and comes back as a head chef and hopefully another opening one day, or even an existing business with even more skill set, knowing, do you know what, it was good working for them. That was a good place. And now I'm in a position where I've learned even more and I can come back and add more value. So those people will always come back round at some point, and I think that's fantastic. And I always make jokes. We've got a young guy here called Dylan. He was the electrician. He's been with me a year and a half and he's flying. He's been promoted twice and he's on fish now. He's absolutely flying. And I sort of said, in 10 years, if we're not working for you, there's been an injustice. So like, there's a bit of like a joke about it, whereas, we want to come and eat in your restaurant in 10 years. And like, that's not going to happen unless you keep learning. And when you got to a point where there's a roof on your learning, you have to jump. So yeah, it's completely correct. I think it's definitely harder for like, places like Gleneagles and these big places, because there's bigger holes to fill with staffing. So if they're thinking like that, then that's amazing, because it's a lot harder to fill those kind of kitchens that are a lot bigger and require a lot more sort of labour, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But well, if enough of us do the right thing and continue with this kind of mentality, then ultimately it just becomes what the industry is known for. So that's what I believe. I will shout about that till the cows come home.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Well, there was a story about you putting a knife through your hand. Don't know if you want to cover that.
Oh God, yeah. I don't know if you can see.
Still got a scar.
It's about that. I don't know if you're able to see it. It's
there. Yeah.
So we'd just taken the pub on, and I think I'm on the phone to suppliers. It's like opening week, and I've got like things to slow cook or whatever, and I'm waiting for my orders and my deliveries. It's like your first delivery, so you like, do the guys know we're here? Is it a new drop for them? And I've got my phone kind of like pressed up my shoulder, and I'm turning potatoes for like our first big Sunday where we've got like a low booking. And I'm turning, and then I kind of just like remember just feeling this tingle in my hand, and I kind of looked, and I put one of the little paring knives through, and it just poked out here.
Oh God! And for context, if you're just listening to this, that's all the way through your hand, basically.
Yeah, it was woo. And and I was like, oh, I'm quite surprised it didn't really hurt too much. It was just like a bit of a warm tingle. And then slowly but surely my hand started to do that over the case. So like, I managed to get through Sunday lunch, but my hand was closing, like my muscle was contracting, and basically I found out I cut nerves in my hand and my fingers. So I think my 4 fingers here, I clipped something that meant that basically I couldn't really feel them, and they were contracting into like this mandible claw. So I was trying to carve beef, and it got to the point where for beginner service I was fine, but the end of service I just had like a bald face.
Chef, I think I'm gonna have to go to A&E.
Well, the thing is, it was me. It was like it was like day one, week one. So it's like, my team was quite stretched. We were looking for teams. So I just had to crack on. But I ended up having surgery on my hand the day after, and I had to get straight back into work and just had to get on with it. And I had a lot more respect for like Michael Caine's all of a sudden. I was like, the fact that he can do what he can do and achieve with one arm, it's like, this will heal, and it's incredible. Yeah. But I just remember throughout the day, kind of doing that. And I remember taking pictures of it. I was like, probably have to go to hospital now. And I just had this like,
do you think?
Like this Michael Jackson claw. Yeah. So yeah, it was a funny story now, but the scar's not faded, and it probably won't. So it's a reminder of like trying to do too much at the same time, and just the dangers.
That's the lesson, right?
Yeah.
Focus on the one thing at hand.
Yeah. Most of us chefs are only really good at doing one thing at a time anyway, to be fair.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's definitely what I've learned now. So
brilliant. Final question then, really, I suppose, just centers around the future. What's next? I mean, it feels like you're growing quite quickly. Is that just a case of you just see an opportunity and think, yeah, that makes sense for what we're trying to achieve?
Yes and no. I think 3 sites happened quite quick, but they were organic in the way that the restaurant had to happen because coming out of COVID, and we just had to have something. We had to put something in the marketplace that was different and something to build from. That was like a necessity for us to carry on as a business. The bar was a byproduct of the restaurant because there was nowhere to go for a drink before and after near us. So it was like an opportunity to capitalise it. And to this day, it does exactly what we wanted to. A place to go before and after, because you've been into Ember. As soon as you open the door, there's a table there. There's nowhere to stand and wait. So if you're early or late for your table, or late leaving your table, so that was a necessity because we had people just standing in the doorway. So that had to happen. So yes, it was quite a quick one, but it was like a necessity. So we kind of look at that as making Ember a little bit bigger. The pub, as I said, we had shared it during COVID, and I sort of said if the pub ever came up, I wanted to be the first one to get a call, and that happened. And from getting the call to getting the keys was a 6-week gap of solicitors and buying and everything like that, and trying to get it all around, So it felt like a rush. But there are 3 decisions that I know if I had a year to make them or 6 weeks, I would have made the same decision. Right now, growth is in spaces isn't necessarily something on my radar. It's making sure what I've got and consolidate and is really bomb proof. Our lease is actually up in July next year at the restaurant in Ember, and my brain now is more space, because my waiting list is bigger than the restaurant most weekends, and it's been like that for 2.5 years. So, and Ember's not big enough really to really grow from. So my next step is potentially putting Ember somewhere it can grow and capitalize on the demand that we've worked so hard to gain. So the growth will be potentially looking at a space where Ember doesn't lose its industrial and kind of like relaxed nature and its position in the marketplace, but also somewhere where we can grow and I can grow my business from here. So we're looking at options. There might be space to kind of like grow within the core. I'm not too sure. It's a discussion we're having. So at the minute, I couldn't think of anything worse than taking on another liability, just because it's a staffing thing. It's a staffing issue at the minute. And that'll be, I guarantee that'll be a pattern emerging when you're speaking to people about staffing. A lot of good places will retain staff, but there's just not enough staff for everybody. So, I could open up a restaurant tomorrow or a business tomorrow. Great. But would I find people to run it straight away, or people that have our core values and DNA? Probably not. So right now it's about making sure we protect what we've got. The pub is only in its 6th month now. We've got some investment for the garden from our drink suppliers. We've got some exciting things coming up, and the upstairs has just been done. So within our business, there's actually already room to grow without having to branch out. So I like being able to touch anything I'm involved with. I don't like the idea of something too far away or something I can't do. So between Ember, the pub and the bar, I can be at either one of them within 15 minutes. And I think I love that. And at the minute, that's enough. I mean, my modern day success, I think, is probably the same as a lot of people. It's just surviving, comfortable, making sure you can pay your bills and absorb the rising costs that are being thrown at us and absorb the labour costs that are going up and yada, yada, yada. So like my success now is like just having a business that can run itself to a certain degree and then just making it better and better. I don't ever want to be the kind of person that thinks, just because we've got one, it'll work 2 or 3, because actually that's sometimes the biggest fall from earth. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Just concentrate on what I've got and really try and make sure I can get it the best it can be.
Yeah, but I'd like that in itself is a great message, because I recruit for the industry, and there's a lot of investment still heading into hospitality, which is great. It's wonderful, but this has kind of made me realize that actually maybe I used to look up at investment houses with wide eyes and jealousy about their capability of their business and all that kind of thing. But sometimes I wonder whether they've thought things through, because as you quite rightly say, at the moment we're creaking at the seams really on staffing. So if you're going to bring in 10 more things into the world that all need to be staffed, where are they coming from? That needs to be the question you ask yourself.
The colleges are quieter. I think we had a really good backbone of labour. Like I say, when I would first come into the kitchens, you had a lot of Hungarian, Polish chefs. You had a lot of labour come from other countries. That's diminished now. So it's like, and there's a lot of people within this country that don't want to do certain jobs, or they don't want to be waitresses, and they've got kind of like a time and place now where a lot of people leaving school, they kind of want mega money and they don't want to work weekends, and it's just things have changed and changing, so we just have to adapt with it. So you're completely right, those people have to come from somewhere. Restaurants and hospitality, it's a saturated market, right? So if you've got the same pool of people just circulating around, it means at any one point time somewhere is kitted out with stuff, but the other person's absolutely wobbling at the knees and probably looking to shut because they can't get it open. The amount of pubs that we see locally shutting, and actually across the UK shutting, most of the time it's because they can't find a chef or the offering's not good enough. So then the footfall, so it's just death by a thousand cuts. So I think you're right. It's 100% correct. It's just concentrate on what you've got and protect what you've got. I think at the minute there's a lot of people flourishing, like Jason Afton's, the guys that own Fallow and stuff like that. You've got some amazing business that seem to grow and grow and grow. There's some special ones to celebrate, but not everyone's journey or trajectory is the same way. So I think it's just kind of understanding the journey that we're on and the brand that we have. So and what kind of business we are. So,
yeah. Not bad for a guy who couldn't concentrate on anything at school, I suppose.
or can separate a courgette from a cucumber.
Indeed, yes, indeed. Well, the funny thing about that is though, the next mistake like that is just around the corner, right? You never know what you don't know and all of that kind
100%.
of stuff. So you just have to take them on the chin and take the learning and enjoy it for what it is, and then crack on. But look, 100%. I'm so glad that we made the choice to come and dine with you that evening. It was an amazing experience. I can't say anything highly enough. If you're listening to this and you're ever in the Wellingborough area, look up Restaurant Ember and book yourself a table, because the food is amazing. It's nicely priced. It's like not super expensive. The experience is it's right in front of you, and you can tell that everybody that's in that business just really gives a monkeys about what they do.
Yeah. For sure.
And we need to shout about places like you, because this is what hospitality should be.
100%. And also appreciation for like yourself for doing this and shining a spotlight, because diners are one thing, but if you're not local to us, you might fancy a special trip now. So yourself, like the people you have on as well, we're all very thankful for people yourselves that make the time and effort to really do share the spotlight, because it's not just the chefs and the business doing a fantastic job, it's people like yourselves that put time and effort and the passion into researching them and showcasing. So a massive thank you on behalf of probably everyone in hospitality that you've shown a light on. I think it's fantastic, and
nice.
These opportunities are amazing. I don't think I'm going to be able to the way it's going.
Certainly not.
Keir Starmer doesn't want us to retire yet.
No, definitely not. Brilliant. Look, wish you all the best with the next phase, whatever that looks like. I'll definitely pop in anytime I'm in the neighbourhood, and
for sure.
And thanks so much for your time.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.
And there we have it. Accidentally finding James's restaurant was a total blessing, and then learning about his approach and general ethos was just superb. An ethos we are very happy to get behind on this show. We'll be back again at 8 PM next Wednesday with another cracking story from hospitality, so thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you then.